1945. The Second World War has ended. The Soviet Union continues to strengthen both its military might and its political influence, but the secret of atomic power still lies in the hands of the United States. However, America's supremacy will soon come to an end. Stalin's plan is already in motion. While searching for uranium deposits on an unnamed island in the Pacific Ocean, southeast of the Soviet Union near Kamchatka's shores, Soviet engineers discover in 1950 a previously unknown energy source, E-99. Seeing element 99 as the key to world domination, Stalin grants unlimited funding to the research program. The program is placed under the supervision of Drs. Borisov and Demichev. In 1952, they establish a laboratory on the island, codenamed Katorga 12. Stalin dies, and Khrushchev takes his place. The new leader demands that research on E-99 be accelerated and moved into field testing. But the 99th element is not only capable of producing unimaginable amounts of energy, it is also dangerously unstable. Under pressure from the General Secretary, the scientists are forced to conduct increasingly hazardous experiments. In 1955, disaster strikes Katorga 12. One of the leading scientists, Dr. Demichev, is killed. Moscow halts all research, deeming it too dangerous, and chooses to erase the island from history, wiping all records. 2010. An American spy satellite is blinded by a surge of radiation of unknown origin. Fearing a second Chernobyl and suspecting Moscow of hiding dangerous secrets, the Pentagon dispatches a reconnaissance team to investigate the source of the anomaly. I welcome you in Save Room Archives, and today I'll tell you the story of how Soviet scientists totally screwed up world history, and how an American Special Forces operative, Nathaniel Renko, managed to make things even worse. On October 26, 2010, a team of U.S. Special Forces enters Russian airspace by helicopter at night. But as they approach their target, another powerful radiation surge erupts, accompanied by an electromagnetic pulse that disables their aircraft. Captain Nathaniel Renko, one of the team members, survives the crash. He washes ashore at the docks of Katorga 12. Soon, he establishes radio contact with Devlin, another soldier who survived the blast. Exploring the ruins, Renko learns that Katorga 12 was not just a laboratory. It was an entire city where families of scientists and soldiers had been relocated. Inside the complex, Renko begins to experience strange anomalies. He sees visions of events from 50 years ago, terrified workers running from some unknown threat, crying out for help. Another surge hits, and Renko is thrown 50 years into the past, into the very moment of the Katorga 12 disaster. Flames engulf the facility, people flee in panic, and amidst the chaos, Renko saves a man with a broken leg from the fire. The man is revealed to be none other than Dr. Demichev, thought to have died in 1955. On the way, Renko also sees another man trying desperately to shout, "Don't let Demichev!" But before he can finish, the ceiling collapses and kills him. Renko saves Demichev, unknowingly altering the course of world history forever. He is pulled back into 2010. At first, everything looks the same. Katorga 12 still lies in ruins, but soon, Renko notices clues that the island suffered not just one catastrophic explosion, but a continuing incident. What he witnessed was not a nuclear blast, but something the Soviet scientists had called a singularity explosion. The troubles, however, began long before the disaster. Close contact with E-99 caused illness, headaches, and even irreversible changes in the human body. One worker, after exposure, woke the next morning with a grotesque growth on his back. Another woman came home deranged, attacking her own family. As Renko wanders deeper into the ruins, he encounters new anomalies, visions of monstrous beings, vaguely human in shape, attacking residents in the past. Soon, one of these creatures attacks him. Rabid and aggressive, the beast turns out to be a former resident of Katorga 12, warped by exposure to element 99. The streets swarm with such abominations. Many of the island's inhabitants had not simply died, they had mutated, not merely through careless exposure to E-99, but because the Singularity explosion saturated the island with it. The island is crawling with different types of these mutants. Most are known as Zeks. Why they were given that name remains unclear. The confusion grows because many still wear tattered Soviet military uniforms. Renko eventually finds himself inside a school, where he discovers that the experiments with E99 had been far more ambitious than anyone imagined. Children and teachers were secretly dosed with solutions containing element 99 during meals. These experiments never happened in the original timeline, but Renko's act of saving Demichev allowed the doctor to continue his work. The school's principal was fully aware of Demichev's plans. Worse still, she knew about the mutations. One of her acquaintances had worked in a laboratory experimenting on animals, yet she did nothing to stop it. As a result, the island's population was literally glowing with E99 saturation. Many fell ill, others mutated. The Singularity explosion acted as a catalyst, triggering horrific transformations and plunging Katorga 12 into chaos. Fighting his way through hordes of mutants, Renko reunites with Devlin inside the school. Together, they hold off a massive assault before heading outside. In the distance, they see a towering energy beam piercing the sky, something unseen during their approach and unreported by intelligence. With no communication to base, they head toward a radio tower to call for extraction. Inside a press building, they find the body of a Russian soldier in an unfamiliar uniform. Reaching the tower, they try to broadcast a signal, but an unknown voice with a heavy Russian accent answers, saying the place had been abandoned for 50 years. The transmission exposes their presence. Soviet soldiers storm the tower. Renko and Devlin fight to escape, but are captured. When they regain consciousness, they are face to face with Demichev, alive, despite supposedly dying in 1955. Renko, by saving him in the past, has altered history itself. Devlin refuses to cooperate, reminding Demichev of the Geneva Convention's rules on prisoners of war. Demichev coldly replies that he dealt with that little inconvenience long ago. When Devlin demands to speak with the American embassy, Demichev lists countless reasons why that is impossible, and then executes him with a bullet to the head. Turning to Renko, Demichev questions why he has not aged a day in 50 years. He demands that Renko hand over something called the TMD. Before the situation escalates, gunfire erupts, and a woman's voice urges Renko to escape. He flees into the tunnels and meets his rescuer, Catherine, an agent of an underground group called MIR-12. She shows him a recording on a laptop, revealing how the world has changed since Renko's interference in the past. On Katorga 12, Soviet scientists led by Viktor Borisov and Nikolai Demichev once studied element 99. Borisov perished during an unknown laboratory incident, after which Demichev took control of the program. He discovered unique properties of E99 and developed weapons that enabled him to rise through the Soviet ranks, ultimately bringing the USSR to global dominance. By the present day, Nikolai Demichev holds the title of Chancellor of the World Government. MIR-12 manages to obtain a journal. Its notes indicate that Demichev's power rests upon something referred to as the Singularity. What it truly is remains unclear, but MIR-12 concludes that only one man can uncover the truth and undo Demichev's reign, Captain Nathaniel Renko. Catherine tells Renko that before his death, Professor Borisov had hidden away an experimental device called the TMD, Time Manipulation Device. Renko must find it. From Borisov's notes, Renko learns that the TMD was created thanks to the accidental discovery of certain properties of E99. The device allowed manipulation of time itself. Early experiments showed that when applied to a kernel of corn containing trace amounts of E99, the TMD could accelerate growth, transforming it into a fully matured plant in just a few days. Experiments on animals, however, produced horrifying results, grotesque mutations. That didn't stop Demichev from attempting human trials. Borisov resisted, sparking a conflict that ultimately led to his death and Demichev's complete control over Katorga 12. Deep within Borisov's abandoned laboratory, Renko finds the TMD, The device can manipulate matter infused with E99, either accelerating its time flow or reversing it. Without E99 present, it has no effect. Inside the lab, Renko encounters a time rift caused by the Singularity explosion. Several such rifts are scattered across the island. Using the TMD, he stabilizes it and travels back to 1955. His mission: prevent Demichev from killing Borisov. Catherine believes Borisov alone knows how to restore the natural timeline. Renko arrives in the midst of a rebellion. Soldiers loyal to Demichev execute scientists who refuse to conduct human experiments. True to form, the communists show no hesitation in gunning down civilians. Renko, deciding he is no worse than them, tests the TMD on human targets, instantly aging young soldiers into piles of ash. After clearing an entire squad, Renko bursts into Borisov's office just as Demichev is demanding the location of the TMD. Borisov refuses, and an instant before Demichev fires, Renko unloads a magazine into him and saves the professor, altering history a second time. Borisov notices the TMD on Renko's hand, his unusual military uniform, and realizes the man must have come from the future. Together, they agree to meet again, decades later. Renko steps into the time rift and is hurled back to October 26, 2010. Immediately, an older Borisov contacts him, instructing him to meet at the tower. To assist him, Borisov has sent their mutual ally, Catherine. On his way, Renko faces not just mutants and soldiers, but also a colossal beast, a giant evolved Zek, codenamed Alpha. Subjected to Demichev's teleportation experiments, the creature grew larger each time it disappeared and reappeared. It had slaughtered countless soldiers before Renko arrived, stringing their bodies onto rebar in its lair. After a brutal battle, Renko kills the monster and rejoins Catherine. Together, they push through hordes of Zeks toward Borisov's laboratory. There, Borisov shows Renko another recording, not on a laptop this time, but on an old film projector. The professor explains in detail what happened after Renko's original intervention in 1955. In the first altered timeline, Demichev demanded Borisov hand over the TMD to test on humans. When Borisov refused, Demichev branded him and his followers as traitors. Demichev killed Borisov himself. In the second, Renko saved Borisov. But it changed little. Demichev somehow survived a hail of bullets, and, without the TMD, focused all his efforts on the Singularity. The catastrophe that followed killed thousands, transforming survivors into mutants. The island was quarantined and abandoned. But by then, E99 had already spread everywhere. It was incorporated into mass production, powering everything from cars and microwaves to weapons. These advancements propelled Demichev up the party ranks. Convinced that E99 gave the USSR total superiority over the US, Demichev persuaded Khrushchev to strike first. The Soviets launched E99 bombs. A single detonation annihilated the entire US East Coast. Simultaneous strikes devastated Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. No nation could withstand E99 weaponry. Within 6 months, the whole world fell under Soviet control. Soon after, Demichev deposed Khrushchev and became the eternal general secretary of the planet. According to Borisov, the only way to restore history is to destroy the singularity in the past before any of these events unfold. To do that, they need the most powerful weapon in existence, an E99 bomb, the same kind that obliterated America's East Coast. Fortunately, one such bomb lies in the wreck of a ship that sank in Katorga 12's bay during the explosion. Renko sets out to retrieve it, but Demichev already suspects that the American and Borisov are working together and sends soldiers after them. Underground, Renko discovers that not only humans, but also plants and animals have been warped by E99. Along the way, he meets Catherine again. Together they head for the train station, planning to reach the port by rail. Soldiers capture Catherine, but Renko rescues her at the last moment. Using the TMD, he restores a destroyed train and they depart. Midway, however, The train is attacked by a giant mutant tick, powerful enough to tear both the train and its bridge apart. After a fierce fight, combining conventional firepower with the might of the TMD, Renko slays the monster, restores the bridge, and continues to the port. Soon after arriving at the port, another singularity surge erupts. Its source, the unstable E-99 bomb within the sunken ship. The blast throws Renko back in time, just moments before the original singularity disaster. He unleashes carnage among the soldiers, but another surge tears him back into 2010. Using the TMD, Renko raises the wreck of the Pearl, the ship that carried the E-99 bomb. Soviet soldiers swarm the site, attempting to stop him. The vessel begins to sink again. To distract Demichev's troops, Catherine boards the ship herself, drawing their attention. Renko dives into the flooded hold and recovers the E-99 bomb. As the ship plunges beneath the waves, he barely escapes to the surface, where Borisov pulls him to safety. Renko loses consciousness. When he awakens the next morning, October 27, 2010, Borisov brings grim news. Catherine was shot dead before the ship went under. Worse, the bomb Renko retrieved is not armed. To activate it, they must take it to a special enrichment chamber located deep within the E-99 processing plant, an area infested with some of the deadliest mutants, creatures twisted from local insects. There's another complication. The enrichment device is intact only in the 1950s timeline. So once again, Renko must travel back through a rift and use the machine before returning to the present. With the bomb armed, Renko and Borisov carry it toward the heart of the Singularity Tower, the reactor itself. The closer they draw, the more unstable time becomes. Past and future bleed into each other, overlapping like shattered glass. Inside the reactor chamber, Renko activates a time rift and returns to 1955. He plants the bomb at the core of Katorga 12. The explosion rips through the facility, and Renko is hurled back into 2010. But to his shock, nothing has changed. The singularity still spews energy into the sky. Demichev stands there, revolver aimed at Borisov. Renko learns the bitter truth. Destroying the singularity was meaningless. Demichev simply built a new one. Renko shoots Demichev, and in that moment, Borisov understands. The true divergence point was not the explosion. It was the instant Renko saved Demichev from the fire in 1955. That was when history split off its natural course. To restore balance, Renko must return to that moment and allow Demichev to die. But there's a problem. If Renko travels back, his past self will still be there. The version who saves Demichev. To fix history, Renko would have to do the unthinkable, kill himself. Borisov pleads with him, insisting it's the only way. Demichev, wounded but defiant, offers another choice. Kill Borisov instead, and together they will rule the world. With Renko and the TMD at his side, nothing could stop them. He rejects both choices, eliminating them in one stroke. Renko walks away into the uncertain future, keeping the TMD for himself. Without Demichev's leadership and without Borisov's guidance, the USSR loses its grip. The world fragments into countless warring states. A new global war erupts, a war of all against all. Casualties number in the millions. Mutants from Katorga spread across Asia, overrunning China. A devastating singularity explosion annihilates the Soviet Far East and even Alaska. In the ruins of the United States, a mysterious, merciless leader rises to power. Rumors whisper that he wields a godlike power, one capable of reshaping the world. Thus ends the tale of Singularity. Nathaniel Renko made his choice, not to sacrifice himself and not to kneel before a mad dictator, but to carve out his own path. And that is how one man, caught in the tides of time, doomed the world forever. Be sure to watch the videos on screen and in the pinned comment. You'll find more fascinating content and help the channel grow. See you soon, and may all the creepy stuff pass you by.